like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item C, adjustments to the agenda.
We have one item to request that you add to the agenda this evening. It would be to new business, J, item 4, which is acknowledgement of acceptance of a grant award.
I make a motion to adjust the agenda by adding 4, acknowledgement of acceptance of grant award, to item J, new business, as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Item D, approval of minutes for August 8th, 2017.
I move that we approve the minutes of the August 8th, 2017 board meeting as presented.
Second.
Discussion? I do have a point here. Item J6, we approved the content of the handbook, the 2017-18 student handbook, not the format. And I think we wanted that noted in our minutes, in that it had some typos and some staff members who had changed names over the summer, and we wanted to make sure. So could we note in the minutes, please, that it was just the content and not the format?
You can note it in the minutes, or we can amend the motion to say, instead of as presented, as amended.
Okay.
If that's okay with the
That's
individual who
great.
did the motion and the second.
It's okay.
It's okay with me.
So they have to do that, or do we just go vote?
You can go ahead and vote.
Okay. So any other discussion? All those in favor? E, correspondence and communication.
Yes, there was one letter of resignation which I've circulated with the board, and I will address that in my report.
Thank you. Item F, public participation. Sorry. Nope. Administrator board reports. Mr. Clifford.
Good evening. You have my report. Just to finish up on some statistics from last year, and I'll include some in the next month's report also. But congratulations to the AP Scholar students, Michael Jack and Kiona Osterlin, for their AP exam scores from last year. They averaged a 3 or better. And also congratulations to the AP Honor Scholar students, and these students averaged a 3.25 or better. And they are Krista Willett, Dylan Taplin, and Fiona Tucker, who are all seniors this year. So congratulations to them. And if you look at the school scores, AP Bio, 5 of 6 scored a 3 or better. 3 or better is getting college credit, and it's the most you can get is a 5. AP English Language and Comp, 9 of 14 students receive credit. AP English Literature and Comp, 4 of 8 students receive credit. Art Studio, 1 of 1 received credit. AP World History, 10 of 12 students received credit. And AP Calculus AB, 2 of 13 students scored, received credit. And AP US History, 1 of 6 students received credit. And if you talk to the AP or College Board, the reason for the low scores in the last two, so Calculus AB, Calculus BC, and US History, those are the 3 toughest exams. So US History, I know, just helping kids prepare for them, they are all dates. 100% of them are dates. So what happened on this day? And so it's a difficult exam. So really happy with the results of our AP from last year. We're off enrolling. Our enrollment is up by 18 students, and that includes everybody that we service. And so that's exciting, because especially the freshman group, because when we left in June, we're looking at about 88 students, and now we're at 104 right now. So we were really glad with that group. And our open house is set for September 21st from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I do have some teachers here. Do you want part of my report or part of yours?
Certainly, I would do them part of my report, but I
Okay.
think there are teachers who have been previously approved,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd like to have them introduced, so I would let you do the honors,
Do
Mr.
it?
Clifford.
Okay. You guys want to stand? Come on up here. So first one we have is Mindy Boynton, and Mindy taught for 3 years at Brewer High School, took last year off and stayed home with her young child, and then decided to go back to teaching, and we're excited to have her. She's on the freshman team. Have any questions
Welcome.
for her? No? And William Fern, he did his student teaching with us last spring with Mr. McKechnie, and did a fantastic job, and we're excited to also have him. He's teaching science, and he's part of the freshman team also.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
And we have our social worker here. Come on up. So this is Amy Van Dorn, and she worked in Deer Isle as a social worker at that school system for a while, and then left and then was at Easter Maine Medical Center the last couple of years as a social worker there. And we're happy to have her. She lives in Hancock, and it's less of a travel, and she's glad to be back in the school system.
Welcome aboard.
Any questions?
Mr.
Yeah.
Clifford, would you please just mention once again, because I think it's a great testament to your leadership, the number of teachers that you replaced over the summer?
Yeah, so we had 3 teachers and a total of 5 staff members. So it was 93% of faculty and staff returned. So that's exciting, something that
That's
is a goal of ours.
That's tremendous, and I really give you kudos. I really think that's your leadership and the leadership of the superintendent, and that has made a huge difference.
Thanks. And the hires this year are quality teachers. You know, they've been excellent so far, and I know they'll be here for a long time and do a great job.
Thank you.
So
Thanks,
much.
Yep.
Mr. Newitt?
Good evening. Life is well at Ellsworth Middle School. We've gotten off to a very smooth start. In fact, we had our open house just the other night, second day of school. Excellent turnout. 4 presentations were given, one by each grade level, with regard to what expectations were all about. And I also gave a proficiency-based education overview for how we are accomplishing that at the middle school this year, because we are now 100% in that arena. So I was really, really pleased with open house. Open house was followed by a session by Mrs. Clifford, our technology director, who informed the 7th and 8th grade parents all about the MLTI program, so that the very next day students could be given their computers for the year. So that was also a very good part of our start. Kind of to back up a little bit, I brushed over the smooth start a little fast. I would like to thank the teachers and the custodial staff for what they did to get ready for this year. We had 4 different teachers move rooms. That in itself is a huge undertaking, to go from one part of the building to another, or even across the hall for that matter. So I thank those teachers in particular, and also just in general, to have those rooms ready to go. You can't do it in the 2 workshop days that you have because you're in training. So that's greatly appreciated. And the custodians were great. They survived a lightning strike that took out the lights in the school, and did all kinds of good things over the summer. And as you know, or should know probably, Mr. Turnbull, who had been the head of the night custodian, is now your director of facilities. And then you have Josh Hendershot, who was our day custodian, is now the night custodian for the district. So we like to promote our custodians at Ellsworth Middle School, and it's been a nice transition for them. Enrollment is up. Never had 372 students before. We have 4 homerooms in 2 grades and 5 homerooms in 2 grades. Class size ranges from 19 to 23, so some of those grades were kind of about its max as we want to get. Co-curricular news, we had 41 students try out for boys soccer. We had to cut about 10 kids. We also have Amanda Trago, who wasn't, last month wasn't on board yet as a JV boys coach, and we're very glad she stepped up to do that. She's in ed tech. Girls soccer, all 31 students that tried out are on the team. Cross country had 53 students running cross country. Drama club auditions are tomorrow and next Monday. Pretty cool show, I think. William Shakespeare, Star Wars. Go figure. So that sounds like fun. In parent news, our fundraiser begins this Friday, so kids will be coming home with packets for our annual catalog sale. That funds all the extras we do for class trips, field trips, prizes for our Halloween contest and talent show contest, things like that. Instrument rental night is next Tuesday for parents. Fifth graders will actually have their demo day tomorrow, and then parents come next week to hopefully outfit their child with a rental or a purchase of an instrument. And our first activity night of the year is Friday, September 22nd. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. McCluskey?
Good evening. As you've seen by my report, we had a terrific opening start to our school. It went extremely well. Teachers, started right off with embedding those routines with our kids, and they continue to do that through this whole month. There's a lot of front loading that will pay off through the rest of the school months with routines and expectations. Mr. Newitt and I worked together with Ellsworth Fire Department. We met the law requirements by getting our first two in right away, first two fire drills. We get complimented a lot by the EPD, by the Ellsworth Fire Department with how well our children and our staff, when you consider we did a fire drill on the second and the third day of school. And I think it was our second one, when I forget the gentleman's name that was giving Mr. Newitt and I feedback. But when you consider K through 8 students and staff, we're just under 1,000 people getting out of that building, and we did it in 8 minutes and 20 seconds, and it was very calm, very quiet, and so we got a lot of kudos from the fire department. And I happened to ask them, I was curious in their minds, is 8 minutes and 20 seconds good? And he said, good. Our goal is 10. So to do that on the second fire drill of the year, just a lot of kudos, especially to our staff for getting those children, trained in such a quick way. Our enrollment, I think you saw on my attachment, I believe that's up, to be honest with you. I didn't compare to last year's enrollment at this time. But we seem to be very full at the elementary school right now. We have 93 kindergarten students spread out into 5 classrooms. All of our K through 3 classrooms have 5 teachers apiece. That's not counting our special ed classrooms. Those are the regular ed classrooms. And then we have 4 classrooms in grade 4. So as you can see by the numbers, we have 440 students total as of September 8th at the writing of my report in K through 4. And we have about 20 pre-K students through CFO in addition to that 440, and I think around 15 pre-K students with our HCTC program. So kindergarten breaks down 93 students amongst 5 classrooms. Grade 1, we have 81 students in 5 classrooms. Grade 2, we have 85 students in 5 classrooms. Grade 3, 97 students in 5, and then grade 4 has 84 students in 4 classrooms. So no matter what classroom you walk into, chairs are full and kids are engaged. So it's a really nice thing to see right off the bat. We had our kindergarten open house. That was on Wednesday, August 30th, and that went extremely well. It was very well attended. Halls were busy, the lobby was full, and teachers were busy welcoming families in. It was fantastic. I want to send out a special thank you to our bus transportation supervisor, Donnie Saunders. He is so good with the children and so good with the families. He provided bus rides, probably 4 or 5 throughout the evening, so students and families could get that first taste of what it's like to be on a bus, and drove them around the loop there. And so that was really nice to have him there. We also, at the end of that evening, for the last hour, we offered walkthroughs for grade 1 through 4 students. And I put on our Facebook page just to remind, not everybody that's been around has to come to that. To be honest, we kind of prefer, it's really geared towards students and families that have not been to EEMS before. And it gives them a brief opportunity to kind of get a layout of the inside of the building, really is the intent of that. So, and that was well attended for those students that needed to be there, and it worked out well. Rachel is going to talk later in her report about the August PD days, but you know, our elementary students, teachers worked very hard over those 2 days, and for the newbies it was 3 days because they had an extra day ahead of time. But there was a lot of work done around our English language arts scope and sequence, learning some new math resources, and having some Atlas training. So I want to give a big shout out to our staff. We asked a lot of them, and they came to the front. They were really worked hard, and now they're trying to implement all that learning in their classrooms as we're moving forward. Our after school program starts October 10th. I just want to let families know that. Parent news, Mr. Superintendent Higgins has allowed me to continue to do the volunteer training that I've been doing the last 4 years. I really enjoy doing that. So I'm going to offer the first one of the year coming up this Saturday. I do one a month, September through December. And what I started last year was offering a Saturday morning opportunity. I do that in September and December, and then in October and November I'll do a weeknight, like a Tuesday one month and maybe a Wednesday the other month. But our first training will be this Saturday, September 16th. It'll be 9 a.m. in the cafeteria, and it's about a 30-minute session once everybody gets their paperwork done, and really looking forward to having more volunteers come in. And as a reminder, this is something that they have to do each year, and it expires on the last day of school. So we really welcome the volunteers to be coming into our building. We had our first PTF meeting tonight. One of my goals as a principal was to involve more teachers at our PTF meetings, and the PTF had actually changed their schedule of having our meetings to 3 to 4 o'clock to make it a little bit more time friendly for teachers to arrive. Teachers really came to the front, and it was a full library in there tonight when we had our meeting, so that was very refreshing to see. Full agenda. We actually went over a little bit, but a lot of nice things coming through our PTF, and we thank them for their efforts. We have a grades 1 through 4 open house, and that's scheduled for Wednesday, September 20th. That'll be 4:30 to 6. I'll be doing a proficiency-based education seminar with folks that would wish to attend from 5:30 to 6 that same evening, and the PTF picnic is also going to be going on that evening from 5 to 6:30. So there'll be a very busy night at EMS. Also, just last thing for parents, I'll get this out on Facebook, but the Picture Day coming up, which is always a big day for families. The K through 4 Picture Day is going to be Thursday, October 5th. Thursday, October 5th. So if it's okay, I'd like to introduce one of our teachers. Sarah, would you like to come up? This is Sarah. Well, she was originally hired as Sarah Kane, but she got married the weekend before school started. So now her name is Sarah Miller. And she was not able to, you approved her a couple of meetings ago, I believe, but she's been very busy, so we're very fortunate to have her. Sarah comes to us from the Bangor school system. She taught in Bangor for 3 years at the Down East School. She was a second grade teacher there, and we were able to steal her away to be a second grade teacher with us. We are extremely fortunate to have her. I know the principal there personally, and when I spoke with him, he had very, very high remarks for this young lady. and they were not happy to see her go. So we were very happy to get her. And is there anything you'd like to say or not? She's doing a fantastic job, and just want to introduce her to you.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
That's all I have. Any questions?
Tim, is the after-school program open to all children, or is it by invitation for children who need extra help?
I believe it's open to all children, but I'm not positive of that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Curriculum coordinator report, Rachel?
Good evening. So, Title I after-school program. Speak of the devil. So our Title I after-school program will start on Monday, October 10th, and will end on Friday, May 26th. So it's very similar schedule to last year. We'll have one teacher and one ed tech work with 15 first and second grade students, and one teacher and one ed tech work with 15 third through fifth grade students. And it will be similar to the last year's program, and it will start by invitation for students who need extra academic support. And if we have additional spaces, we will talk to teachers about referrals for the program. I'll speak in a little bit at my presentation about how we use our Title I funding, and this is one of the projects that we are able to use it for. Kelly Rudolph will continue to be the coordinator for the program, and will be sending home permission forms to families whose children qualify for our Title I-A program. That should happen in the next, I would say, 4 to 5 days. This was really, really successful last year. We're really excited. It was the first year last year that we were working separate from the 21st Century Grant that we had started here in Ellsworth, and have our own program with our own staff for the most part. And it was really exciting to see, and the indication to me of its success was that almost all of the children who went to the after-school program came to our summer program. They loved it. They loved being in after school. They wanted to see some of the same staff. They liked the format, and we're excited to continue in the summer. And so we will also continue to host artists. We had physical education leaders. We had yoga. We had improv theater a couple times a month for student enrichment. And so we bring those artists and movement and different kinds of presentations to the school, so the kids can experience some new learning that way as well. As Tim referred to, the opening days, professional development on August 30th and 31st. The teachers were trained on Go Math, our new math resource in grades K through 8, and the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt AGA, the Algebra 2 program in the high school. Elementary, middle, and high school teachers, as well as administrators, each had personalized math training, and based on teachers' reviews and observations, the presenters were knowledgeable and well-versed in the programs. We heard really excellent comments about the folks that they brought. I was particularly pleased to see that the original account representative who worked with us throughout, as well as the professional development representative for the entire, for New England, both came along to watch the presenters and make sure that they were answering all of our questions. We went along, so I felt like we were being very supported, which is nice to know when you've made a new investment and chosen a new resource for the district. So we also had an excellent trainer for our new reporting system, Jump Rope, who worked with the teachers. And we are hoping to have both the math trainers and that Jump Rope trainer in particular return in November for follow-up training. New teacher orientation was held on Tuesday, August 29th. And I have to say, I and the other folks who helped me run the program, Debbie Richards and April Clifford, all of us have been very impressed with all of our new teaching staff, the questions they asked, the experiences they discussed. We were able to talk about proficiency-based instruction and teaching experience, and made us pretty excited to start the new year with all these folks. So it's a very nice, hopeful way to start. Also, you'll see in my staff presentation that we have completed our Title I and II application for the Department of Education. And this year it is a suggestion, and we decided to do it in this format to share it. We want to share it with the public and let everyone know how we use those funds and what we are able to do by way of receiving those funds, because it offers us extra opportunity to support our students. Lastly, I just want to bring up quickly a topic that we'll hear about more in November. We're hoping for a presentation. I'm very, very excited about a new relationship that we formed with the Grand Theater. We have the new executive director, Nick Turner, and he has hired an outreach coordinator, Nicole Cardano, and we have formed a relationship with them in which the students, every student in the school will have an opportunity to attend a show at the Grand. And in addition, their outreach coordinator, who is a arts educator, is working with our curriculum system in Atlas to look at what each of the teachers are teaching and connect with them ahead of time to have a lesson for the students connecting the show that they'll be seeing with the curriculum they're working on. So then when they go to the play, they will see her as an MC where she can connect what she worked with them on. They see the show, and then there's a follow-up activity that she will do with them after the show back at the school. So it's going to be integrating arts into the curriculum, be meaningful time outside of the class, forming a long-needed new relationship with the Grand. The executive director is extremely enthusiastic. He came to the PTF meeting today, and Kelly was there, and no, he is on fire. He is very excited about having a relationship. And one of the things that I like very much about what he said, and that he has on his business cards, he said, "This isn't the Grand, this is your Grand." It is not, it's our responsibility to make sure that we are serving this community, because we are part of this community. And so I think that's very moving to think of the relationships that they feel a responsibility to bring along the school. So I'm very excited. I'm an arts person myself, and we had our first meeting with the outreach coordinator today with the 8th grade teachers. It happens that the first production is Frankenstein by a visiting theater company by Mary Shelley, and it happens that 8th grade right now is working on Edgar Allan Poe, who is a contemporary of Mary Shelley. And so they're going to be doing some short stories that relate, and she's going to be doing some character work with them before they go to the show, and then do some follow-up activities. So it's pretty exciting, and it's right around the corner. Thank you. Any questions?
Rachel, will information be going home to parents on how to access the online Go Math resources?
Yes, as soon as all of that's up and running for the teachers as well, as soon as the teachers and the administrators have that under their belt, we want to be able to have them have all the answers. And so as soon as we've had a little more training, we are bringing in, we're going to have some online live webinars with the publisher to give some more training. There was so much to learn on the opening days, and so we wanted teachers to get up and running. And so in the next month, we're going to have some online training about how to run the online piece of Go Math, and then we can also teach teachers. I think one of the venues that actually, I think Mr. McCluskey mentioned, suggested a while back, was having some kind of tutorials on closed circuit TV so that teachers could watch them, or sending home videos so that they could watch how to access those things, as well as having people come in and we can share how to do that. Absolutely. And we will do the same thing with Jump Rope, probably next month, once that's up and running and teachers have a good handle on that. We'll be having visible access to that for families.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience, members of the viewing public. I don't want to reiterate everything that our principals and directors have said, but it has been a very positive opening to the 2017-2018 school year. In addition to all the things that were mentioned by the previous presenters, I've had an opportunity to be in every one of the schools on a couple of occasions, and the excitement and the engagement that you see with students is visible. You can feel it as you walk through the schools, and I certainly think it's a testament not only to our administrators and our current staff, but also to some of the new staff that you met tonight and other new staff you've approved over the summer. We've really got an outstanding staff, an outstanding program, and a school system that is really going in the right directions as we all believed that it would. So it's been a fantastic start to the year, and I would like to also follow up on one of the things that Mr. Newitt mentioned with regard to the facilities and our custodial staff. In addition to the work that they've done every summer, they really did a fantastic job this year. If you go through our buildings, if you had an opportunity to, take a look at how fantastic they look. And I'll give you two examples. One is with the lightning strike that we had at the middle school. Our custodians really worked without full light in the school. They really made do with a very difficult situation, and the school still looks fantastic. The other piece, and I know you'll all get a chance to go to HCTC, when you look at the new classrooms that have been constructed for early childhood and the academics classrooms, really an outstanding addition to the program, and the HCTC Biomed Lab. Work on the ventilation system is nearly complete, and we're still waiting for the equipment to come in. But really, a lot of work has been done to get ready for the school year, and we're off to a fantastic start. We'd like to give this next report item as a reminder to our public for school bus safety. On behalf of the Ellsworth School Department, I would like to remind all citizens that our school buses are on the roadways on a daily basis, and state law requires all vehicles to stop for buses that are stopped and have their red flashing lights on. We ask and encourage and urge all drivers to heighten their awareness of the presence of school buses while driving, and really want to express appreciation to the work for our Supervisor of Transportation, Donnie Saunders, and his outstanding staff of drivers. You know, they really work hard in making sure that they're doing everything they can to ensure the safety of our students, and that's our top priority. And they've really worked hard to ensure that they're making sure that the proper signals are being done, and really helping work with our police department to make sure we do not have people passing buses. So just ask people to continue to be safe. A positive item, we'd like to report that on September 21st, the Maine Department of Education facilities team is going to be coming to Hancock County Technical Center to tour the facility. This tour is part of the Maine Capital Improvement Program through the Department of Ed, which is their school construction program. There were over 80 applications that have been submitted for the current funding cycle. HCTC's is one of them. They'll be coming to our facility. You know, they've seen the application, they've reviewed it, and they'll be coming to do a tour with Director Bowles, Facilities Director Turnbull, and myself to evaluate the facility and see where we will fall on the priority list. So we're certainly very hopeful. There are a couple of teacher nominations that we'll bring forward in another item in the agenda that your Personnel Committee has done, I think, back on August 24th. In addition to the new staff that you met this evening, there are some other staff that have been hired that typically don't come personally to the board. We'd like to list them now. Two of them were mentioned not by name, but Josh Hendershot is transferred from his custodial position to a maintenance shift leader position. Tom Crochane has transferred from a second shift custodian at the high school to a day shift. Carl Farrell has transferred from a second shift position to a first shift. Audrey Herbst has transferred from her overnight position to replace our soon-to-be officially retired Chuck Brooks as the day custodian at EEMS. We've hired Amber Kirby as an ed tech for the early childhood program at Hancock County Technical Center. Norval Nicasio has been hired as a custodian at EEMS for the overnight shift. Mr. Newitt mentioned earlier, Amanda Trago has stepped up to be the boys JV soccer coach at EEMS. And Heather Layton has been hired as a custodian on the third shift at EHS. So again, some good quality staff that will be joining the school department family. One of my item that I want to close with is a bit of an update on the entrance at Ellsworth High School. I know we've talked about this over the past couple of meetings, and I gave an update at the last meeting. Even with all of the information that we've put out, we are still getting a few questions coming forth, and the most prevalent is, can we still use the old entrance to drive to Ellsworth High School? Well, the short answer is no. But some of the follow-up questions that we are getting is, why can't we? What about students who walk? What about athletic teams? What about physical education programs? It's important to recognize for all of us that the requirements from the Federal Railroad Administration and the Maine Department of Transportation are in place for everybody's safety. The most basic requirement that we have is that that gate is supposed to remain locked at all times. However, we have been given the opportunity to work with the representatives from Down East Scenic Railroad that would permit us with a limited usage of the crossing while we're still able to comply, in a sense, with the Federal Railroad Administration and Maine DOT requirements. At this point in time, we have the following pieces in place. We have been permitted to provide access to our walking students both in the morning and the afternoon. We have staff that will go down, open the gate, make sure that our students who are walking and come from that direction are able to access without having to walk the long way around or climb the fence. And we've had some instances of that. We have been granted access to our physical education teachers, have access to the code on the lock so they can take their classes back and forth in the tennis courts or the baseball field as necessary. To our coaches of our teams who need to go back and forth for practices from the school, they have access to that, and they've been granted that limited access to use the crossing. To our custodial and maintenance staff for necessary projects, and what I mean by that is if they're doing work down on the baseball field or the tennis courts in that area, it makes more sense for them to be able to use that old crossing to get their equipment there than to drive all the way around. The other piece that I think it's also going to be very important is, and this is for when we have a lot of the events at the high school, you know, I'm going to use graduation as one. We know how crowded the parking lot gets there, but we also have athletic events, show choir performances, music concerts, in which the parking at the high school on the school side of the tracks and fence are not sufficient. We've been granted permission for those events in which it requires additional parking down below, to use that as an overflow parking lot and open the gate for pedestrian use. So it's really nice that we have authorities that are willing to work with us. The Downey Scenic Railroad, who is very willing to work with us. And all they ask is that we do two things, that we work to promote safety and that we maintain communication with them. So that's an update for you as a board, and also in great part for our viewing public.
Yes.
And unless you have questions for me, that concludes my report.
I have just one brief question, and perhaps Mr. Clifford would chime in on this as well. How is the flow going through the new entrance? Are things working out smoothly? Have there been any issues?
Yeah, there haven't been any issues yet. The bus route is fine. They just come in, take a right, and circle around. And that hasn't, that stop sign is gone now, so they can go right through. So, no, there hasn't been any issues whatsoever so far.
Great.
Been very fortunate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Item H, committee reports. I know that policy's going to be, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, and we'll also be talking, personnel is met, we'll be talking about that. However, I did want to state that on August 29th, we did our board evaluation, our self-evaluation, came up with a couple of items that we wanted to work on as a board. And that was something, we had a lot of good conversations. We took 2 meetings to have these conversations, and it was very productive. Any other comments?
They were good meetings.
That's it. So how about, there's no old business, and item J, staff presentation?
Yes, we have a staff presentation tonight. This evening, our curriculum coordinator, Rachel Corman Ramos, is going to do a presentation for you with regard to Title I, Title II grants. I know she's provided that information to you over the weekend. Hope you had a chance to look at it. Certainly, there's a lot of detail in those applications, but Rachel's going to do an overview as part of more of a public outreach piece with regard to the grants and how we use that funding to support our students. So I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Hi. Long time no see. So I shared this with you in the reports, and I wanted to share with the community as well how this process works. This is an actual picture of our grant, and it will be posted to our website so that if the community would like to see it, they can. And generally, this is Title I and Title II funding. Title I refers to students who are economically or academically disadvantaged, and Title II refers to providing funding for professional development and to strengthen the craft for our teachers. So it's done a little bit differently than it's been done in the past. Now you can choose a project and you can identify funding from both sources for one particular project. There used to be, you have to write a grant for all Title I and then write a grant for all Title II, but I think there's been some understanding that there are components of both that apply to one project, and I can show you a couple examples of that. So we have some district projects, and we have some school-wide projects. So a lot of, as you can imagine, legalese and documents from the government. You know how long government documents can be. They talk about several different funding sources. One of the things that's brought up here is our non-public school participation form. The kids piece is associated with us, and they now have a portion of our Title II funding goes to help them support their teachers. So they have asked for a project to help get some professional development for their teachers to write IEPs with standards-based language as that has changed. And so we will be the source of helping them set that up. You can see here the different people who are in charge of the different areas. Carolyn Heller, who's our business manager. You'll see Debbie Richards is our instructional coach. Mr. Higgins, our superintendent, they ask for lots of different pieces of information. They have funding. So essentially, just to go through our main projects, I wanted just to show you a couple things. So we have some district projects. One of the mandated projects that I'm pleased is mandated is one to support homeless students. And one of the ways that we've found the best way to do that is to provide them supplies. So if we have students who need backpacks, who need supplies to get started with school, then we are able to have some funding through Title I to do that. We also have a project, there's also several projects that they make you fill in even if you're not doing them. So one of these projects that kind of covers both kinds of funding is our instructional coach this year. And we're very fortunate to have Debbie Richards full-time, able to work in both schools now. There's two pieces of her job. One of them is a half-time position at the K-8 school where she has been. And we're also able to add a project, a Title II project, so that she can support teachers in looking at data at the high school and helping them differentiate their instruction and finding strategies to do that. So that's a new piece for us, and we're really pleased. She is a data-driven person as well as being able to provide data-driven instruction. So she is the perfect person to help us with this. And so that is one of our projects there. We also have a project of supporting our curriculum instruction and assessment team. And that's representative teachers from throughout the district who meet twice a month on Mondays as a team and usually take on a project. In the past, last year, 2 years ago, we took on creating a glossary of educational terms, proficiency-based terms to provide for our families and to research those and talk about what things people needed some more transparency on, some more understanding of. That was one of the big projects they took on, as well as aligning the standards. And then this past year, they created a 3-year professional development plan, which I'll also be sharing with you in the coming months. And this year, we are going to take on looking at our benchmarks and looking at our kind of 2nd, 5th, and 8th grade benchmarks to build our students up to their graduation standards and make sure that they are all ready as we pass them to the next band of learning. And so this is a project that supports their time and supports them if they have mileage to go to professional development workshops and that kind of thing. Again, this is the Kids Piece project. And you can see here what they do is they break out different funding streams so that you can use the different pieces of funding in different ways. And you essentially learn what each one supports and talk about how the different components of that project meet the needs of each grant. Another one of our district projects is to train teachers on a program called Standards Mastery that is a component of our iReady diagnostic program in K-8 that will now pre-test students on particular standards so that it can help teachers understand where they need some additional instruction. And so we'll give them kind of an A and B assessment, so it can kind of be a pre and post test to help teachers know where kids are on particular standards. And as we work towards standards-based instruction, this will be extremely helpful. So this will support the training in that project. Let's see. This is a new grant. We have received a grant called Title IV-A, Well-Rounded Education. And all schools have received $9,628.61. They took some pot of money in DC and split it out among everybody. And the focus of this are several, but the one that I find I think will be most meaningful for all of us is to support kids with technology in education. Fortunately, they released this grant to us about 2 days before we needed to submit the entire thing. And so they said, if you can give us something very general, then you can reopen it later when you know exactly how you'd like to spend it. So we have several possibilities of things we might use that money for. I've just recently heard about someone who has become certified in Hancock County as teaching coding through the code.org program in Washington, D.C., and is a highly certified instructor. I think that bringing coding into the district might be exciting. So there's lots of possible options that we could use this money for, and we're going to work on that as a leadership team. Fortunately, they were allowing us to be able to create a space holder, a place there in order to move our application forward. And then here we have the school projects, and this project is the bulk of our Title I and Title II program. And what this does is this supports our Title I interventionists. So we have 4 Title I interventionists, 1 reading recovery teacher, 1 alternate intervention in the early grades. Then we have an interventionist in 2nd and 3rd grade, and we have an interventionist in 4th through 8th grade. And this Title I money supports those teachers who, without it, we would not be able to have in our schools. And so they are the ones who are really in the front lines with our students with struggles in literacy. And so this is the bulk of our grant, and extremely important. This piece of the funding also supports Debbie Richards, our instructional coach, and also supports our literacy specialist, Candace Bray, who is nationally known for her work and has been helping us identify the very minute pieces that students are missing so that we can really target the interventions that we give to them. And so we're kind of shaking up our Title I program a little bit this year. We're having a reading recovery program alongside some alternate interventions for kids who aren't even at the level that they can really access reading recovery. And so we're really trying to get some very fine, minute data on those students. We're doing some difference assessments this year. And so this project supports the 4 of those teachers. Debbie Richards, who is supporting the classroom teachers and working with those kids as an instructional coach, and Candace Bray, who's a literacy specialist, helping us identify those interventions. So I'm very excited about that. This is also the piece of the grant that supports aftercare, our aftercare program that I just discussed, and also supports our parent involvement program, where we have parent literacy nights, where we're able to provide free books for our students, where we're able to share strategies about how families can work with their children in reading and math. So this is where you kind of see the programs that we so value and realize that with this funding, we are able to provide these services. And so you have this form, and we wanted to make sure that you had some kind of basic explanation of that. I can tell you in Title I, we had a provision of $280,000. In Title II, we are provided $51,000, and our Title IV grant, as I said, is $9,800. Do you have any questions?
I do. You referred to 4 specialists, 4 literacy specialists. Title I is literacy and math. What are we doing math-wise?
That's a good question. That's another piece that we are working on. We've worked on it in our budget. So we've talked about in our budget in the past about bringing in a math interventionist, and that is really where we'd like to put some resources towards. It is definitely needed. However, looking at the data, when we looked at priority, the school is so big, and without our literacy, students aren't able to access reading, social studies, science. And so we have put those priorities already. The 4 through 8 interventionists and our 2nd and 3rd grade interventionists are completely stretched. They're not even able to bring all the students to them that they'd like to. However, we are hoping that with more training and support with teachers and proficiency-based instruction and differentiation, many of those students will be able to serve in the classroom. So what we decided when we were talking about resources and funding is that given we're getting a new math resource that is specifically built to differentiate and to support teachers in differentiating, we want to see if over the course of the year, more of the classroom teachers can meet the needs of some of those students with the most struggles, and then really identify which students need to be separately pulled out with intervention. You know, we look at a limited pot of local and government funding and decided that we would start with the new resource that provided this differentiation and play that out so that we can see where the most need will be for another person.
Okay.
And I think if I could add a few
Sure.
pieces, as we all know, through the last budget process, an interventionist to work with students in math was something that was near the top of our priority
Right.
list. And it certainly will be again when we start doing budget here in a couple of months. Certainly, I understand what Rachel just explained.
My concern is, it's not just the elementary child, it's the child that falls behind in math, who now when they get to chemistry has problems doing some of the, or
Absolutely.
physics because they don't have the math. So unless you've got the early intervention and making sure we're where we need to be. It's an ongoing struggle for that student, and
It couldn't be more true. And so, given the way that this funding worked, we wanted to have that come out in the local budget and then weren't able to. And so I think as we look at our data and we look at the instruction that we implement, both for reading and for math, over this course of this next year as we've retooled Title I think we can look at both sets of money and see how we can fund that, because it is absolutely something that we have been wanting for years.
And I haven't, had the opportunity to really go through this math program, but I do know that everyday math was very heavy into the reading for a student. And this this program may take care of some of those issues of Johnny opening the book and not knowing what to do because he couldn't read the page.
That's correct. And one of the main concerns that we had with both Everyday Math and with Springboard is that they were literacy heavy. They were literature based. And so when a student may have proficiency in math and be so excited to be able to access that, but they're not particularly good readers, they were then barred from becoming proficient in math. And so one of the reasons that we wanted to look at different resources was for that very purpose, so that those kids who could access math would be able to, regardless of their literacy abilities. So I'm hoping that as that shifts, we can have that conversation more, because I think it'll become more and more apparent where we need to have the support in math intervention.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with you.
Thank you.
Rachel, is the grant award amount based on the number of children in our schools or the number of free and reduced? Where did we get those numbers?
It's based primarily on the level of free and reduced students that we have. And as I think you all as board members know, one of the things that we've put out over the past couple of years is information to parents that to encourage them, even if they're not sure if they would be eligible or not, to apply, because the greater number of students we have that meet those levels increases this funding, and with more funding we can do more to support our students.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because it is exceptionally important, even if there are children who families think may eat lunch at home and decide they don't want to access the program. Every school application that can come in, if the student is even reduced through the family's income at that time, even if it's temporary, it helps us immensely. I always ask Ray, what are we at? When I'm about to wait for this funding, what number, what are we at? It's like 45, 44, and 50 is that magic number. And as you can see, the amount of good we can do with this funding is tremendous. And so the more applications that we can get, even if the family isn't planning on accessing our lunch program, to show the need in our community for these resources, the better off we are. And we are so close. So I would definitely put out a plea to all families to please fill out that lunch form for us. It helps, it impacts this immensely.
Rachel, although we know that they're sent home, they may have been last week or the week before, if parents are hearing us tonight and thinking, gee, I threw that out, where could they get an application now? And are there deadlines for them to meet to get it in?
They can get the application by calling any one of their school offices. They could call our food service director, Ray Daly.
Phone number, got one off the top of your head?
At the central office at 664-7100, but certainly could also access him through any of the schools. Any of the main offices in the schools can provide that. And the thing about the applications is things change over the course of a year for all families. Families can apply at any time. But the other thing that Mr. Daly also has for people that may have access, there's a new online component that we're experimenting with this year to see if that can reach another portion of the population. That's another opportunity.
Absolutely. There is an October 1st, I believe, snapshot.
Yeah.
So if it's possible to do it this month, that is very, very helpful to all of us. In many ways, not just with this grant, but it does impact this grant and the kind of funding they look at, but it does help us in lots of different ways. Is that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Item J2, acknowledgement of personnel committee action on behalf of the board.
Yes, Mrs. Thomas, Mr. Markosian, would you like to take this, or would you like me to?
Go ahead.
The Personnel Committee did convene on August 24th, and that was to fill our last couple of teaching positions. We have already announced, and you've met a couple of the people that were approved by the committee, but we do have two teachers that require your acknowledgement. First one, you've heard Rachel talk about our literacy specialist. is Jessica Freeman, who will be our literacy interventionist from grades 4 through 8. She comes to us with bachelor's in concentration in English from the University of Maine and has worked in Title I programs at both Brewer and Newport. Comes very highly recommended from her previous positions, and impressed the interview committee of her experience working with level literacy and her ability to develop a rapport with students. The Personnel Committee voted to confirm my nomination, and I think what they're asking for you to do tonight as a board is to acknowledge that action.
I make a motion to acknowledge the Personnel Committee's action on behalf of the board in hiring the following staff: Jessica Freeman, EEMS literacy teacher, and Whitney Moran, EEMS K-4 special education teacher.
Second.
Discussion?
If I may, I didn't do the second one, I apologize. Whitney Moran, who used to be Whitney Ranger, was nominated to the Personnel Committee to be a special ed teacher at EES. She served the past 3 years as an ed tech in the special education department at the school, and her experiences working with students and staff across the K-4 grade span have helped prepare her for a transition from the ed tech position into having her classroom. Works well with students and staff, and the interview committee thinks that she's going to be a solid beginning teacher for EEMS. Thank you for letting me add that.
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
J3, election of delegate and alternate to the Maine School Board Association Delegate Assembly.
Yes, I think, as you know, as a board, this is the delegate assembly at your fall conference, which is coming up at the end of October. You have the opportunity to have a delegate and an alternate to be at that assembly to vote on, lose my word, resolutions that are put forth by the association. So we open it up to you to nominate and elect a delegate and an alternate.
And I don't know if we've talked, I know we talked about the conference, but I don't know if we've determined who's going.
I cannot.
I'm planning on going.
Okay.
I'm planning on going.
Okay.
And I also am planning on going. And I was the delegate last year, so I'm happy to allow
Do-
someone else to,
Okay.
wasn't I?
I was
Yes.
last year.
Oh, you were,
were
that's
the year
right. Oh, I was the year
before.
before, yeah.
So
That's
I,
it.
maybe you'd like to do it again this year?
I'd be happy to do it, or if you want to do it, you can. Whatever, I'll defer to your wishes.
I'd like to have you do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So does this require a motion?
We have to have an alternate. Kelly, would you like to be the alternate?
Sure, as
Okay.
long as Paul goes.
So
May I have a motion?
I make a motion that Paul be our delegate and Kelly be our alternate to the conference.
I second that.
Discussion.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor? Acknowledgement of acceptance of grant award.
Yes, this is a grant that was applied for, I believe, Rachel, last spring, correct? Late last spring?
Yep.
Late last spring. And we were just notified that we have been approved to receive the grant. And the grant was approved in the amount of $4,000. Typically, that's $2,000 per reading recovery teacher. As you heard Rachel talk earlier, we now formally have one that is a reading recovery. So that may be a $2,000 grant, and I don't know if that's been updated or not.
Actually, they're looking into whether they can redirect the other $2,000 to help Moira Perry receive the training for reading recovery. It's excellent training, and they may be willing to help her and support her in that.
And as you can see from the letter that we provided you in your packets, there's opportunities for teacher training, materials, PD. You know, it's a great opportunity to have a little bit of additional money to support our efforts with literacy. So we encourage you to acknowledge our acceptance of the Galen Cole Family Foundation Grant for Reading Recovery.
I move that we acknowledge acceptance of the Galen Cole Family Foundation Grant for Reading Recovery Program as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Calendar and announcements. School Board Workshop, September 27th 6th in the conference room. We had a little issue at the last time we had a workshop. Policy meeting to be announced. and
Actually,
can-
we could, we've come up with a date and time for that. That
Okay.
is going to be on Tuesday, October 3rd, in the superintendent's office conference room, and I believe we're gonna start at 6 o'clock. And that meeting will be the start of the triennial review of the policy manual, so we're looking at Section A. We'll also be looking at volunteer policy and a visitors to school buildings policy, and
Okay.
any others that may come up between now and October 3rd.
All right. And the next school board meeting will be Tuesday, October 10th, 2017, City Hall Council Chambers at 6:30. Item L, adjournment.
Having no further business, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second that.
All those in favor?
And that's 7:34. Thank you.
Thank you.